Hello, friends. Welcome to today's exciting story. Just 5 months into my job, I got transferred to a city where my older sister, Emily, and her husband, David, lived. I was thrilled to see them because I shared a friendly bond with David, and Emily and I had always gotten along great. Within 4 or 5 days, I packed all my stuff and arrived at their house in Seattle. They were just as happy to have me there. Emily had 2 adorable kids, and I loved playing with them. One day, I had to travel to another city, Portland, for a 5-day meeting related to work. I told Emily and David about it, grabbed some of my things, and left. But just as I was about to board my flight, my boss called and said the foreign clients we were supposed to meet couldn't make it. Bad weather had canceled all their flights, so they wouldn't arrive this week. The meeting was rescheduled for 2 weeks later. Since it was canceled, I had to head back to Emily's house. And when I got there, I noticed the front door was locked from the inside. I rang the doorbell for a while, but no one answered. I started to think maybe the bell was broken. Then I knocked on the door repeatedly, but still no response. I began to feel a little worried. What if something had happened to Emily? David usually left for work in the morning and didn't return until evening, and he often traveled out of town for his job. The kids would be at school, so Emily was likely home alone. What if she'd fallen ill? I started to panic. I didn't have a spare key, so I began looking for a way to get inside. When I went around to the back, I saw that the kitchen window was open, which gave me some relief. I quickly climbed through the window into the house, but Emily was nowhere in sight. As I moved forward, I noticed some roses on the dining table, and strange noises were coming from Emily's room. Curious, I walked toward it. Her bedroom door was slightly ajar. Then I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. Emily and David were lost in each other, caught up in an intimate moment. They were so wrapped up in it that they probably hadn't heard the doorbell. I immediately stepped back. I shouldn't have seen them like that. I felt ashamed for catching them in such a private moment and realized I needed to leave. If they found out I'd come in and seen them, they'd feel embarrassed too. So I climbed back out through the kitchen window. I decided to kill a couple of hours at a restaurant until they were done with their romantic time. With that in mind, I headed to a popular spot in Seattle called the Pink Door. I was sitting there, waiting for my order, when I saw David walking out with some people. My jaw dropped. If David was at home with Emily, how was he suddenly here? It was shocking. Unable to stop myself, I followed him. I called out to him a few times, and he heard me. He turned around, and seeing me there, he looked stunned. "Weren't you supposed to be out of town?" he asked. I replied, "David, my meeting got canceled unexpectedly, but what are you doing here?" He said, "I've been here all morning. My meeting just ended, and I was heading back to the office. But if your meeting was canceled, why are you here instead of going home?" The mention of home brought Emily's position back to my mind. That meant the man I'd seen with her wasn't David. It was someone else. Was Emily cheating on him? A flood of questions hit me, and I got lost in my thoughts. David shook me and said, "Sarah, what's on your mind?" I'm asking why you didn't go home. "What are you doing here?" I didn't know what to say. How could I tell him what was running through my head? that I'd gone home and seen something that made me leave. I made up an excuse. Actually, David, a friend suddenly asked me to here, so I was just waiting for her. He seemed relieved and said, "All right then, meet your friend and head straight home. I'm off to the office." Then he left, but my head was pounding with confusion. I couldn't make sense of what was happening. I decided to head back home right away. This time, when I knocked, Emily opened the door on the first try. She was shocked to see me and said, "Weren't you going to a meeting? How are you back so soon?" I told her the meeting got canceled, so I had to come back. After that, she talked to me normally, like she always did. I still couldn't believe I'd seen her with someone else. To reassure myself, I asked, "Did David come home this afternoon?" She replied, "You know how it is. David's usually out of town for work. When he's here, he leaves for the office in the morning and comes back late at night. Why are you asking all this?" I brushed it off, saying, "Oh, just curious." Then I ate dinner and sat quietly in my room. But that scene I'd witnessed kept replaying in my head. Emily's kids were playing with me, but today I wasn't in the mood. I felt like crying. I wanted to confront Emily. Why was she doing this? Why was she ruining her happy family? David was such a good guy. He cared for her so much and never let her lack anything. So why was she betraying him? But I couldn't ask her. I wasn't sure how true what I'd seen was. I decided I needed to dig deeper and keep an eye on her. From that day, I started watching Emily closely. I noticed that after David went to bed, her phone would ring and she'd quietly go up to the roof to talk. That confirmed she was speaking to someone. There was another man in her life, but why? I still didn't understand. A few days later, my boss sent me to attend an important meeting at a big hotel, the Westin, in downtown Seattle. After it ended, as I was about to leave, I saw Emily standing at the reception desk. She spoke to someone, then headed upstairs to a room. I secretly followed her and saw her enter a room. I waited downstairs in the reception area. About 3 hours later, she came out, and 5 minutes after that, a man stepped out of the same room. I'd never seen him before. When I saw Emily leaving, I quickly covered my face. The man left, but Emily stayed outside the hotel. I wondered who she was waiting for. Then a taxi pulled up, and she got in. I grabbed another taxi and told the driver to follow hers. I thought she might be going home, but we passed the route to the house. Where was she going? Her taxi stopped near another hotel, the Fairmont, and she went inside. I followed discreetly. She took the elevator to a room and stayed there for 2 or 3 hours. When she came out, the man with her left me speechless. It was Ryan, a friend of my older brother, James. What was he doing here in Seattle, so far from home? And why was Emily secretly meeting him in a hotel room? I couldn't wrap my head around it. They left the hotel together, but took separate taxis. My mind shut down. Was Emily involved with multiple men? I scolded myself. How could I think that about my sister? Growing up, I'd never seen her do anything to question her character. But what I was seeing now, what was it? What was she doing in hotel rooms with these people? That evening, when I got home, Emily looked unusually stressed. I asked, "Why do you seem so upset?" She said, "I get bored, staying home alone all day." You and David are busy with work. The kids are at school, and no one has time to take me out. How about this? You and David take a day off, and we all go somewhere together. It's been ages since I've gone out, and the kids haven't either. I nodded along, but I was stunned by her blatant lie. I'd just seen her hopping from hotel to hotel that day, yet she acted like she never left the house. A few days later, I came home early from the office again. Emily didn't open the door. I figured the same man from before was probably there again. I got furious. How could she do this to David? Didn't she ever think about her kids? She was so blinded by her desires that she'd forgotten all limits. I went through the kitchen window again. Inside, everything was a mess. Then I heard Emily scream from her room. I rushed in and saw that same man trying to force himself on her. Without thinking, I grabbed a stick and hit him on the head from behind. He passed out and fell to the floor. Seeing me, Emily hugged me, sobbing, and said, "Sarah, you saved me just in time." I asked, "Who is this guy, and what was he doing here?" She said, "He's a thief. He came to steal." I snapped, "I'm done listening to your lies, Emily. I'm tired of it." She looked at me, shocked. I continued, "Did you think I wouldn't find out about your dirty secrets? A few days ago, I saw you with this guy in this very room, doing shameful things, and I saw you leaving a hotel room with him too." Her eyes widened. She fell at my feet, begging, "Sarah, please don't tell David. I'm begging you. Save my family from falling apart." I said, "Save your crocodile tears for someone else. Weren't you ashamed while doing all this? I've seen you with who knows how many men in hotel rooms. I even saw you with James's friend, Ryan. A woman like you should be ashamed. You're a disgrace to others." She said, "You're right, Sarah. A woman like me doesn't deserve to live." She ran to her closet, pulled out a gun, and aimed it at her head. I grabbed her hand and took the gun away. I was shaken. I asked, "If you're so ashamed, why did you do it?" She said, "I didn't want to. I was forced. He was blackmailing me." I was stunned. "Blackmailing you? Why?" She said, "I'll tell you everything, but promise you'll help me. I'm trapped, and I can't get out alone." I said, "I'll help if you tell me the truth." We tied the man to a chair and gagged him. I gave Emily some water to calm her down. Then she opened up about her past. Secrets no one knew. Emily said that before marriage, David loved her deeply. He'd take her on dates or outings, but after the kids were born, he stopped paying attention to her. She complained many times, but he'd say he was working hard for the family, earning money. She tried explaining that money wasn't everything. She needed his time, but he wouldn't listen. Around then, our mom got sick, and since I was in college and James and his wife were at her parents' after her father's death, Mom was alone. She called Emily to stay with her for a while. While there, Ryan, James's friend, often came over to help with the kids. He noticed Emily's sadness and slowly befriended her. She enjoyed his company. He gave her the attention and time David didn't. The kids liked him too. When she had to return to Seattle, Ryan proposed to her. Shocked, she refused and cut ties, returning to David. But David's attitude stayed the same. She tried everything to get his attention, but he didn't care. Feeling lonely and depressed, she grew tired of her routine life. One day, Ryan called, apologizing for his proposal and suggesting they stay friends. She agreed, thinking there was no harm in it. Soon he started visiting her at home, but David didn't like it, so she told Ryan to stop. Instead, he suggested meeting at hotels. And one day, when she met him at a hotel, she crossed a line. Feeling supported by him, she gave in to temptation and did something she never should have. It became a pattern. Ryan convinced her it was fine. It brought them both peace. Later, when she visited Mom again, they met at Ryan's friend Michael's house, which he'd rented for a day while Michael was out of town. There, they gave in to their desires again. Back in Seattle, life went on until Ryan called with devastating news. Michael had secretly recorded them at his house and was blackmailing Ryan with the video. Emily's world crumbled. She lied to David, saying she needed to visit Mom for a few days. When she got there, Michael demanded she sleep with him too, or he'd keep the video. She had no choice. She thought it would end there, but it didn't. Michael kept blackmailing her, even showing up at her house to force himself on her and demand money. She couldn't tell Ryan if he knew she'd been with Michael. He'd think she'd betrayed him too. As she cried, I noticed Michael waking up. I grabbed his phone and deleted the video. I warned him, if I see you near my sister again, I'll call the police. He laughed and said, you think deleting that video saves her? Ryan has one too. Emily and I were floored. She asked, what do you mean? Michael revealed it was all Ryan's plan. He'd lured Emily to Michael's house to record her, then let Michael blackmail her for money and pleasure, splitting the profits. They'd played her, and she never suspected a thing. Emily sobbed, I've ruined my family. If I'd controlled myself, I wouldn't be here. I'm a terrible mother. My kids deserve better. I said, calm down. Call Ryan here. Tell him you're alone and want to spend time with him. Hungry for her, Ryan rushed over. Emily took both men into a room while I called the police. They were arrested, and months later, a court sentenced them each to 10 years in prison. I want to tell you all, don't ruin your life for a few minutes of pleasure. Give time to your loved ones. Money can't fulfill every need. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this story. For more thrilling tales, subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon